A 28-year-old millionaire CEO falls in love with his 20-year-old adopted daughter after a confusing series of events that lead to this troubling situation. If you're intrigued by this dramatic story, stick around as I unravel it for you. Jean Ayoung, a 23-year-old orphan, does her best to care for her 8-year-old younger sister, Jean Danby, despite their tough circumstances. However, luck is not on their side. Their landlord gives them only 1 week to vacate their rented apartment. Devastated and with no options, Ayoung searches for a new place to live, only to realize that all the rents are far too expensive. One day, as Ayoung heads to work, she overhears Danby's classmates teasing her for not having a tent or a father to join the upcoming school camping trip. Furious, Ayoung confronts the girls but feels helpless about their situation. Later that day, Danby watches a father and daughter eating together in a restaurant, which makes her envious and draws the attention of the father, who asks a waiter to remove her from the premises. Before things escalate, Seo Yuzin, a young CEO of a prominent company, steps in to defend the girl and invites her inside. Inside the restaurant, Yuzin asks Danby why she was staring through the window. Was it hunger? Danby reveals that she wasn't hungry but instead envied the little girl for having a father, a heartfelt confession that deeply moves Yuzin. On impulse, he offers a proposal. He needs a daughter to fulfill a condition in his grandmother's will to inherit the company she left behind. To his surprise, Danby immediately agrees, even drafting a contract herself and getting Yuzin to sign it. Only after securing his agreement does she reveal that she also has an older sister. Later that night, Ayoung waits for Danby to return home. Her childhood friend and co-worker, Jean Yugo, sends them fried chicken to cheer them up, knowing about their struggles. When Danby arrives home, she confesses that she feels sad and asks her sister if she ever wishes for a father. Ayoung replies yes without thinking much of it, unaware that Danby has already taken action to make it happen. The next day, Danby introduces Seo Yuzin to her sister, announcing that he will be their new father. Shocked, Ayoung demands an explanation. Yuzin explains the situation and presents a contract outlining the terms of his guardianship, which will last only 1 month. Skeptical, Ayoung initially refuses, but when Yuzin shows the contract drafted by Danby, she realizes how much her sister wants this. Ayoung seeks advice from Yugo, who warns her against trusting strangers and encourages her to find another solution. However, with no home and no alternatives, Ayoung reluctantly agrees to the arrangement, repeatedly emphasizing that it's only temporary. At Yuzin's home, he welcomes Ayoung and Danby and begins explaining the house rules, as they will now live together. Ayoung is annoyed, claiming this was not part of the deal, but their argument is interrupted by Danby's excitement about her spacious new room, softening Ayoung's resistance. Despite her reservations, Yuzin seems genuinely happy to have them there. Over the next week, Yuzin grows fond of Ayoung, impressed by her determination. When Danby leaves for a school trip, Ayoung and Yuzin find themselves alone for the first time. They agree to set boundaries to improve their coexistence, but their differing lifestyles lead to clashes. However, Ayoung softens toward Yuzin when she discovers he has been texting Danby to check on her trip. One night, while trying to fix Danby's broken toy unicorn, Ayoung asks Yuzin for tools. He admits he doesn't own any since he replaces things instead of repairing them. This annoys Ayoung until a large bug appears in the room, terrifying them both. They work together to get rid of it, ending up on the floor laughing, though embarrassed by the situation. The next day, Ayoung talks to Yugo over the phone, recounting the bug incident. Yugo teases her, knowing she's scared of insects, and becomes upset when he learns Yuzin helped her. Yugo accuses her of making a reckless decision by living with a stranger, urging her to reconsider. Before the call ends, Yuzin's uncle arrives unexpectedly to confirm whether Yuzin really adopted a daughter. Mistaking Ayoung for Yuzin's girlfriend, he questions her, prompting Yuzin to step in and introduce her as the housekeeper. Embarrassed, Ayoung feels hurt by the situation, but Yuzin apologizes, explaining he wanted to avoid misunderstandings. Later, Ayoung meets Yugo, who expresses his concern for her and Danby, urging them to move in with him instead. However, Ayoung reminds him of the signed contract and refuses. Frustrated, Yugo criticizes Yuzin, accusing him of exploiting the situation. He gifts Ayoung a personal safety device and a mosquito racket before leaving, which she appreciates. Back at work, Ayoung encounters 2 mothers of Danby's classmates. They accuse Danby of being rude and mistreating their daughters, setting the stage for yet another confrontation. Ayoung was stunned because she knew her sister wasn't capable of such behavior. Her friend tried to calm the situation, noticing tensions rising, but the women ignored him and kept pressing. Just then, Yuzin entered the cafe, asking Ayoung why she hadn't answered her phone. He explained that he had been trying to reach her after receiving a call from Dambi's teacher about the incident, prompting him to cancel his entire schedule to resolve the issue. The women interrupted, demanding Ayoung address their complaint instead of wasting time on her phone. They threatened to report the matter to the police if no action was taken. Yuzin, visibly upset, turned to them and calmly stated that it was their daughters who had provoked Dambi first. He revealed that he had video evidence to back this claim and asked if they were sure they wanted to involve the police. The women, now visibly nervous, hesitated. Yuzin handed them his business card, introducing himself as Dambi's legal guardian. Upon reading his title, they turned pale and quickly retreated. This left Ayoung astonished. She couldn't believe he had stood up for her and her sister so boldly, especially after denying her in front of his uncle. As she watched him, she felt her heart race, confused by her emotions. That night, when Ayoung returned home, she was surprised to find Yuzin waiting. She assumed he would be at his office, but he explained that he had cleared his schedule and asked if she could accompany him somewhere. Curious, she agreed, and they arrived at a store filled with camping equipment. Ayoung's face lit up as she saw the gear and asked why they were there. Yuzin confessed that he wanted to make Dambi's dream of camping come true. His thoughtfulness made her genuinely happy. She asked how he had known about the trouble at the cafe earlier, but he avoided answering directly. Ayoung told him they should be more careful about sharing their family arrangement with others. Yuzin reassured her that she didn't need to worry anymore. In that moment, she realized she might be falling for him. As they continued talking, Ayoung admitted she had misjudged him. She had assumed he didn't care much about others, but now she could see she was wrong. Yuzin opened up, sharing that he had built emotional walls after losing his parents as a child. He explained that this tough exterior had helped him survive the challenges he faced afterward. However, thanks to his grandmother's love and guidance, he grew up with strong values and resilience, which drove his determination to protect the company she had worked so hard to build. Hearing this, Ayoung finally understood his motivations and assured him he was doing a great job. Unbeknownst to them, Yuzin's uncle's assistant had been secretly watching and photographing their every move. The next day, when Dambi returned home from school, she enthusiastically called Yuzin Papa, further fueling the assistant's suspicions. That evening, Yuzin was stunned when Ayoung walked downstairs dressed for a wedding. Her elegance left him speechless, and he asked if she would be back in time for dinner. Later, he confided in his secretary, Young, admitting that he felt different lately. He realized he now cared deeply about two things instead of just one. Young smiled, noting that Yuzin seemed happier than ever and encouraging him to follow his heart. Before they could continue, Yuzin received a troubling phone call that left him visibly worried. Meanwhile, Ayoung returned from the wedding with her friend, telling him she had reconsidered her stance on marriage. She joked about feeling sore and mentioned she was starving since her uncomfortable dress had limited her eating. Her friend teased her, claiming she had eaten plenty, but noticed her discomfort and handed her a pair of sandals from his bag. Ayoung was touched by his thoughtfulness, though he jokingly insisted they were actually for him. While scrolling through her phone, Ayoung noticed several missed calls and a message containing a shocking article. The story included photos of her, Dambi, and Yuzin outside their home. Her friend, outraged, urged her to pack up and leave immediately. Back at Yuzin's house, when Yuzin arrived, he demanded to know why Ayoung hadn't answered her phone. His concern was evident, but her friend stepped in, telling him to leave her alone. Yuzin, maintaining his composure, firmly asked him to stay out of it. Ayoung, caught between the two men, felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. It was clear this was a personal matter between the two of them. Yuzin asked to speak with Ayoung alone inside the house, but her friend refused, saying he wouldn't allow her to suffer any longer at the hands of someone who had only used her to save his company. He accused Yuzin of never truly caring for Ayoung and blamed him for letting her sign that contract in the first place. Ayoung tried to calm her friend and asked him to leave, but Yuzin surprisingly agreed with him. He admitted that he no longer wanted to continue with the pretense. Then, looking at Ayoung, Yuzin confessed that he didn't need her as a daughter. He wanted her as a woman. He revealed his feelings for her, admitting he was in love and telling her to take her time to think about it. He assured her he would wait for her at home. Afterward, Ayoung talked with her friend, who finally admitted he had feelings for her. He explained that he hadn't confessed earlier because he didn't think it was the right time, especially considering everything she had endured after losing her father 7 years ago. Ayoung apologized for not recognizing his feelings sooner, but admitted she only saw him as a friend. She thanked him for always being by her side, but confessed she had feelings for someone else. Though visibly hurt, her friend told her he wanted her to pursue what made her happy, encouraging her to follow her heart. Ayoung returned to the house and found Yuzun waiting. When she asked him when he had started loving her, he confessed that it was from the moment they met. He explained how his life had changed since then, feeling happier every day despite struggling to accept his feelings at first, thinking they were impossible. Despite his efforts to ignore them, he couldn't help but fall for her. His vulnerability moved Ayoung, and she kissed him, promising to support him as he worked to resolve the company issues. They shared a passionate embrace. Time passed, and Ayoung returned to her usual life, waiting for the day she could see Yuzun again. She later heard from a client that Yuzun's uncle had been arrested after Yuzun and his team uncovered embezzlement involving several business partners and employees. His uncle, furious, confronted Yuzun, accusing him of raising a tiger cub ready to turn on him. Yuzun calmly reminded him that justice had finally caught up with him. The uncle also threatened to expose Yuzun's supposed daughters, but Yuzun confidently told him that his lies no longer mattered. Meanwhile, in the park, Dambi was once again arguing with her classmates, who teased her about not having a father to take her camping and accused her of being forgotten by her sister. Just then, Yuzun appeared and greeted Dambi, who excitedly called him Papa. He cheerfully introduced himself to the other children and told them he had arranged an exclusive camping trip with a pool just for Dambi. The girls were left speechless with envy. Later, Ayoung was working when she turned around to find Yuzun standing there. He asked if she had waited long and handed her a letter. In it, he formally asked her to be his wife. Overcome with emotion, Ayoung embraced him, and they celebrated their happiness together. And so, this beautiful story came to a joyful conclusion. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by commenting part 2, and we'll bring you more if it's something you'd like. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.